worse just sitting there and feeling stuck and exiting out of life. So we're all boxed in by the boundary conditions of our own mind and our own thinking. But we actually operate 95% from our unconscious mind, that you can change, that you're never stuck. It's just getting the right help to be able to transition you through where you are now, through those boundaries.
Linda Marshall is actually a partner down here at the Hub, the Success Hub in Sawtell. She is a transformational coach and a mindset specialist with 24 years experience in the personal development industry. She's been on a panel already this year with System 1357, which was a global panel to kick off the year. And certainly she raised a lot of questions, a lot of interest in this space. And a lot of people don't really understand NLP, and I didn't either, even though I've written I've read a lot of motivational books and self-help books. In fact, if you look behind me there's a Tony Robbins cassette tape thing there that I was listening to in the 90s. And then someone said, oh, that's all NLP. And I went, oh, is that what that is? So, this whole programming of your mindset is, and as the words are, life mastery, mastering what you want out of life is such an important thing. So it's certainly had a lot of interest online, Linda, that your session's coming up. So I really can't wait to hear what you've got to say. So what else would you like to add to that?
Okay, well, I'll chuck into the screen share, but welcoming you all. I'm Linda Marshall from Life Mastery Now, and I'm a transformational coach and mindset specialist. So I'm really passionate about understanding the mind and how we function and dysfunction as a human being. And obviously this all started with my own journey. You most wish to teach what you most need to learn. So what I've learned in that is we're all masterfully messed up. It's not just me. So welcome to humanity. And hopefully today you actually really learn something here today in being able to create the life that it is that you want. Because if we can update that programming in the mind, we can actually have the life that we want. So ordinary people can live extraordinary lives, and it's just knowing and understanding how to do that. So with welcoming you all here today, just flicking in my slides here. It's not let me move to the next one, Scotty. Why is that?
No idea.
No. As you'll get to know through this presentation, I love quotes. So there's a little Einstein quote here which says, the world as we have created it is a process of our thinking, and it cannot be changed without changing our thinking. So I want you to be able to realize that you're in charge of life versus life being in charge of you, and knowledge is power. So hopefully today you learn something, you can't unknow something. So I want you to be able to think of how this relates to you as I go through it in your life. So what you will learn here today is how the mind works, an insight into yourself and others, and an opportunity for change. So let's begin our journey. Everything in life, I said, is a choice. And if you've all seen the movie Sliding Doors, we can come to a T-junction in our life and we can either go one way or the other. Okay, but the most important thing is that you don't exit or bug out of life, that you actually choose a path and make a decision. And you can pivot at any point in time. But if you can decide, commit and act and at least go one way, you can always change direction down that path. But there's nothing worse just sitting there and feeling stuck and exiting out of life. So as you know, depending on what path you choose, if you've watched the movie Sliding Doors, it can have a completely different outcome. So how the mind works. So we're all boxed in by the boundary conditions of our own mind and our own thinking, as Einstein says. So I want to be able to stretch outside some of those boundaries today, and hopefully you can have some little aha moments at the same time. So to do this, I want to share with you that there's two typical types of people in this world. And the first person stagnates and shrinks. And the second person expands and grows. So if I go into these in a little bit more detail, this person who wants to, the outlook shrinks as they head towards their retirement, their outlook gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So we call this one $300 a week, bowls and death. So they get $300 a week from the pension. They play bowls and then they die. They become very cynical the older they get, and they become very set in their ways. Their mind gets very set. And they can also buy material things or search outside of themselves to make themselves feel happy. But really it's an inside job. We've got to look at what's going on within. And you may know some people, the older they get, that they get really set in their ways like this. Whereas life's about contribution and giving back. And unfortunately, this person doesn't always think like that. The second type of person, however, as they get older and head towards their retirement, the opposite happens. Their outlook expands and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And I say, well, which type of person do you want to be? This person understands that we grow and evolve and change and expand, okay? But we hit up against these lines, which also represent the boundary conditions. So this person realizes that you need to nurture yourself. You either grow and expand and evolve, or you stagnate or you die inside. When we want to grow and evolve and expand, and these lines that represent the boundary conditions can keep us stuck and can keep us where we are. And as Einstein says, we get very boxed in by that. Why is that? Well, we've got two main parts of the brain. You've got your critter brain that I'll talk to you about, which is your amygdala, or that fight or flight response. That part of your brain only cares about longevity of life, not quality of life. And that's why it'll repeat you staying where you are, and it doesn't want you to step outside the other door. It doesn't want you to move to this next boundary because it doesn't know what's on the other side. And then your cortex brain will kick in, and that part of the brain will reason, blame, justify, make excuses, and tell the story of why you should stay where you are, why you should stay in your comfort zone. So an example that I'll give you, and I hope this didn't happen to any of you, but let's say you grew up in a home where your dad beat up your mum. What happens with the programming in the mind is the programming gets set from a young age that abusive relationships are survivable for me. So it just gets stored, it's like a photocopier, and it plays itself out. But you grow up as an adult with that program, and then you go out into the world and meet a partner, and all of a sudden you wind up in an abusive relationship. You might complain about it to your friends, but because that critter brain kicks in where the abusive relationship is survivable, if you try and want to step out of being out of that relationship, the cortex brain will kick in and reason and justify why you should stay there. So you'll say things like, oh, well, he or she earns a good living and they cooked me dinner the other night and they told me that they loved me. So you convince yourself of why you should stay there. But eventually, yes, you can come to your senses and you leave, but then you meet the next person and the same pattern happens and we repeat it. Or then you leave that person and you meet Mr. Nice Guy or girl, but they're not coded as survivable. So what I do as a mindset specialist is help code it to be survivable so you can push through those boundary conditions in a healthier way. And my philosophy is all about how do we work smarter, not harder, and how do we fast track you. So if I'm able to update that programming and that patterning that's been sat there from a younger age, you're able to move through these phases in a lot more of a healthier way. So quite interesting of what we do. So hope you find that interesting so far. And now I want to share with you an insight into yourself and others. And another quote, again, as you know, I love quotes by now, a Charles Darwin one. It is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the one most responsive to change. Okay, so you can't change the problem at the level that it was created. And what I want you to learn to do is thrive versus just survive. And to do that, we want to teach you how to be more responsive and adaptable to change. But as you can see, the system typically doesn't like change because it only wants to stay where it is in its comfort zone, its longevity of life, not quality. And that's why we find it hard. So also, I want to share with you the roundabout of life. So everything I've learned over the past 24 years, this is the best way that I can put this into a model to teach how it is that we function or dysfunction as a human being. And the best way that I can explain it, it feels like a roundabout too. It feels like sometimes you can be going in circles. I've also got in the bottom left-hand corner there, you will do this until the day that you die. So learn to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable, all right? That is when you're stretching out of your comfort zone, and we've got to be able to push through that. It can feel a bit scary and exciting. So I'll explain this roundabout to you, and whilst I'm doing this, I want you to think about how this relates to you. Do you feel that you do this? But every human being I've shared this with has said, oh my gosh, thank God I'm normal. It's not just me that does this, all right? So we go into phase one, and this is where everything, you know, everything's going well in your life, and then all of a sudden you hit a trigger. Now, you may think you know what that trigger is, but what I will tell you is your problem is never your real problem. 9 times out of 10, when I'm looking at people that I'm coaching, it's sort of we drill down on what the real problem is. You might be dealing with the effect, but there's generally an underlying cause. Okay, but for the purpose of teaching you this now, all you know is you're going through life and everything's fine and you hit a trigger. Then you move into phase 2 where you're starting to go downhill. So what does this look like? This is where you start losing motivation, or you start making poor decisions, or you start procrastinating and not making any decisions at all, okay? And then that moves you into what we call phase 3, which is a stuck or a baseline state. Now, how low you go and how long you stay there may vary. So without life mastery, you can have the big highs and the big lows. And if we look at the lows, that baseline can be quite low. It can be helplessness, worthlessness, despair, depression, or we can get into things like where you're just feeling stuck or lost. Because with life mastery, I teach people how to go up and plateau, up and plateau. So you'll still do this, but it's just not as extreme. Another thing that I'd like to share with you is that when you're in phase 3, this is when your brain is offline, okay? So you type into Google and nobody's home, there's no internet, it's nothing connected. So this is why it's really hard that when you're stuck to think about logically what to do because you're not in that part of the brain at the moment. So this is why I teach people lots of different tools and techniques that they can use in any given situation, anywhere, anytime, that are quick and easy to be able to move through this phase. And it's like a muscle. If you don't use it, you lose it. The more that you use them, the stronger this gets. So you start to gain more conscious awareness of where you are on this roundabout, because you're going to do it till the day that you die, and using tools to be able to move through this phase into phase 4 so that you regain hope. And then we're back up to phase 1 where everything starts going well again. You'll do this over and over and over again till the day that you die. So learn to feel comfortable feeling uncomfortable, because you may as well get used to it. Start to have conscious awareness around where you are, and also be able to, you know, I teach tools that you can use to be able to move through this roundabout in a healthy way versus an unhealthy way. Just because I know all this stuff doesn't mean I'm immune from it. I still do this roundabout. We'll all do it. But I'm a lot better at, even with big stuff, at being able to move through this roundabout in a healthy way. So hopefully you're finding that interesting. And again, this is where the Welcome to Humanity part comes in, because we'll all do it. So the top 5 areas of, well, 5 key areas of life mastery. So generally over the years, I find people want to be happier, healthier, have peace of mind, and have good relationships, and be reasonably prosperous or financially independent. And hopefully that sounds like you. Hopefully that is also what you are looking for. So the Life Mastery Now Success Target looks at these 5 key areas, and these 5 key areas have the most impact in our lives. And I look at the holistic approach. If you look at it as a piece of the pie, if a piece is missing, it is no longer whole. Okay, so you are no longer whole. So we want to be able to look at who are you in all of these 5 key areas, and we want to be able to master all of these 5 key areas. To be able to do that, we bring it back to that emotional mastery, learning how to respond versus react, being able to teach you tools and techniques that you can manage and master your emotions so that you can do life versus life doing you, which equals life mastery now. So the opportunity to change, you can't change what you don't acknowledge, okay? We can't see our own blind spots. So that is why I still work with a coach to this day, because if you can't see something, how can you change it? Well, you can't. So hopefully today I'm going to reflect, put the flashlight of the focus on some of the areas of your life that you can start to identify where you might need to change and grow and expand. Again, I hope you're finding it interesting and you're starting to relate to this. So I'd like to share with you the Life Mastery Now success model, which is I want to have personal financial wealth and well-being. That's what most people are wanting, and they want to be able to live the life that they desire. So how do you get that permanent change, success, and fulfillment? I'll answer that question as we go. But if we look into these 5 key areas, and I explain them in a little bit more detail, again, as I'm explaining each one, how does this resonate and relate to you? What speaks to you as I go through it? So we look at the self first. The self is the identity of the who am I? Who am I now that I've had kids or that I can't have kids? Who am I now that my kids have gone to school or left home? Or who am I now that I'm 50 and I'm not where I thought I would be financially, or that my partner has left me? So from about the age of 35 to 55, we become a lot more reflective and thinking, oh my gosh, I've only got so much time left. Where am I now? And not where I thought I would be. And a lot of people have a bit of a freak out around that. And I'm able to help people reinvent themselves or that next chapter of their life. And it's okay that, you know, you can shift and change at any time and look at your life and go, okay, what direction? See it as a good thing versus not a good thing. Then we have relationships. So I'd just like to share with you, your intimate partner is always going to be your greatest teacher. So don't shoot the messenger. They're going to be the one that presses your buttons. Why? Because they matter. We don't live in a rewarding or punishing universe. We live in a reflective one, and your partner is always going to reflect back at you where it is you may need to change and grow and expand, okay? So don't shoot the messenger. They're there to teach you. So look at the situation that you're going through and go, well, how can I preserve the positive learnings, or what can I change, what can I grow? Where can I take a lemon and make a lemonade, for example? Relationships do have a big impact because they really affect how we operate every day with our friends, our family, our partner, our work colleagues, and building good relationships in the business world as well. So they do have a big impact, and it's certainly an area that we'd like to master. The next area we look at is money. Now, whether you're rich or poor, you always want more. This is an area that I look at with everybody at some point in time. Why? Because it's our currency for living. It has the most impact in our lives. And whether, you know, we want it or we don't want it, we can have lots of different distorted belief systems around money that we grew up with. And if you think a little bit, what is it that your parents said around money when you were growing up? Those programs can be affecting what it is today and the wealth that you want to create. Then we look at business and career. So a lot of you here are business owners today. And so with that business, are you enjoying the business? Have you bought yourself a job? Does your lifestyle fit into your business, or does your business fit into your lifestyle? We want to have it the right way around so that you don't feel like you've bought yourself a job and you're really enjoying and thriving in that business. We've also got career. I've also helped a lot of people reinvent themselves in a career where if they don't have satisfaction or fulfillment, we've been able to turn what it is that they enjoy and what their skill sets are into a job and package and position how they can work for themselves and do that. So that may be something that you're looking at or wanting to do. We have processes in order to do that. Or are you satisfied, or is there areas in the career where you are really happy, but you may need to upskill, and we can help you with some of those things as well. Then there's your health. So your health can be looking at things like weight loss, where people want to lose weight and maintain that weight loss, or it can be things like disease in the body, can be dis-ease in the body. So we can look at where there's a lot of unresolved emotional issues, where they've done a lot of studies around things like cancer, for example, where there is still go and get your medical help, but you can also look at the unresolved emotional issues that helped cause, you know, the cancer and stuff and things in the first place as well. So we look at both sides of the equation. So there's your body speaks your mind. If people have a sore shoulder, it can be things like, what burden are you carrying? Or if you've got a sore back, that often relates to support. Where am I not feeling supported, or where am I not supporting myself? So we just dig a little bit deeper and be able to change some of those things to live a healthier life as well. Then we also have things like peak performance. So people that are sports players and things like that, that may want to enhance an aspect of their game. Like, for example, I had a lady working with golf, and she was wanting to, you know, really master her chipping. And so we would sort of work on that aspect of her game. So they're the 5 key areas of mastery. So how do we get to have the personal, financial, wealth and wellbeing in all of those 5 key areas to live the life that you desire? So we look at what's called this logical levels of change. I bring in this triangle, which is we've developed a tried and tested methodology based on the Robert Dilts logical levels of change, or we can even say neurological levels of change, which look at the 5 key areas of mastery which have the most impact in our lives. So if we're bringing it all together, I also want to point out to you, we also have conscious change and unconscious change. So the first 3 levels there, we look at a lot of the conscious change that typically people can make a lot of their own change in. There definitely is an unconscious level that I'll be talking to you on today as well, that I look at in those deeper levels, but you can make change on those levels. But a lot of where the real problem and programming comes from and stops people is in the unconscious levels, which is in that top 4 category. Okay, and that's really difficult because that's a lot for us in that blind spot part. So if we look at these areas in a bit more detail, I'm going to go through each level, and I'm hoping that you're finding it interesting. I know it's a lot of information to take in, but trust me, we are seeding this into your conscious and unconscious mind as we speak, and there will be things that you get to recall, but please feel free to watch the recording afterwards as well. I'm going to go through all of these levels, and I want you to think about, again, how does it relate to me? Where does it speak to me? Where does this relate when I grew up? Where's some programming that I might have that I can resonate with in some of these levels, okay? So the first one is environment. Environment is something that you are familiar with, Okay, so it's your workplace as well. For example, if you've got a messy desk, it affects how you work. So what is the environment that you're putting yourself in every day? Like, have you got a messy desk? Do you want to make a better environment for yourself? It's everything that makes up your surroundings, including you. So who are you showing up as? You know, when I grew up in school, like if you hung around the wrong crowd, you could get tarred with the same brush, or you could become them. So, you know, who are you? Make sure that you have control over who you are in environment. Also with environments, when people want to expand and grow, they often tend to turn to their friends and family for advice, but they may not have the skills to help you. You may need to put yourself in a different environment to be able to learn and grow in that area that you're wanting to learn and grow in. Like you've all shown up today, you're obviously interested in your own personal growth and development, so you're putting yourself in the environment to do so. Well done. The next level we'll move into is behaviour. So behaviours are unconscious strategies that we run, okay? So these are the unconscious side that I'm looking at. For example, anger, frustration, depression. So if you have someone that goes from 0 to 100 really quickly, that's an automatic habit if it's happening that quickly. I've also got depression in there because I suffered from a nervous breakdown in my 20s. I had postnatal depression with both my girls, and I didn't understand how a happy-go-lucky person who was into personal development ended up depressed. It just didn't make sense to me. So that was really when I had a ferocious curiosity to learning and wanting to understand, how did I get there? I don't get it. And once I understood what the strategies were that I was running and how I got there, I was able to change them. So I also want you all just to do a little exercise for me where you can all just lift your arm. If you lift your arm for a moment, you don't think about all the muscles and nerves and tendons that it takes to lift that arm. It happens automatically. And this is where some of our behavioural strategies come from as well. So those ones that you don't feel like you can change yourself, we can also go into that unconscious level and reprogram it. You can also have positive and negative drivers. For example, weight loss, I've got there. So for myself, when I got married, I wanted to lose 15 kilos for the wedding, and for the engagement party, I didn't quite get there. So I joined what was called Easy Slim, which is like Weight Watchers, and I lost my 15 kilos. And I also became an instructor because I love helping people. If I can do it, you can do it. So I also did that as well. But after the wedding, sure, I looked like the princess in the dress on the day. I lost the 15 kilos, but I started to put all the weight back on again and started to do that yo-yo. And that's because my driver was a negative one. I only wanted to lose weight so that I wasn't so-called fat on the wedding day. Whereas someone who has a positive driver, food is just fuel. Exercise is like brushing their teeth. So I've been able to update that and maintain it. So sure, I can fluctuate a few kilos here and there, particularly over Christmas, New Year. My birthday's in there as well. But I have a threshold where it kicks in after a few kilos. It's almost like, okay, time to do something about it. I've just never blown out to that 15 kilo mark again. I've also got in there emotional mastery equals life mastery. And this is where you can learn to respond versus react, particularly when it comes to your behaviours and your behavioural strategies. So it is something that I teach people how to master and manage their emotions so that they can be in control of them versus them being in control of you. Now we're going to move on to the capability. So capabilities are your skills and your skill sets. And often the things that you learn or need to learn for life skills, you don't learn those at school. For example, communication and listening. You role model that from your parents, and they may not have healthy communication or listening styles, but they can really affect how we operate in the world, how we in relationships, how we do business. So it's a really good one to learn to master. And also I've got in there that your mind is like a big computer, all right? And we basically get all of our programming imprinted, and we grow up as an adult with that program. With that, I've also put in there that we operate 95% from our unconscious mind. And science has now proven this in the last 12 years or so. I've known this for over 20 years, but we actually operate 95% from our unconscious mind. That's what's driving us every day. So you don't know what you don't know, that you'll never know, because we can't see our own blind spots. We don't have access to seeing what's in our unconscious. That's why you need someone to be able to point out and see what it is that you can't see. That's why I still have a coach. So that's really important to understand and to know. And as a mindset specialist, what I do is update that programming so that you get a different result. So we accept the fact we update our phones and our iPads. We want to be able to update the programming of our mind as well to get the result that we want and have that permanent change. So I've also got in there your imprint age. So your imprint age is when you're just a sponge from the age of 0 to 7, and everything just goes in and sets up a lot of the programming that you grow up with an adult today, and that is affecting how you are in business, in life, full stop. So some of that programming from the age of 0 to 4 is typically where I find a lot of stuff for people, it's sitting. And so that's stuff that you're not even consciously aware of. Then from 7 to 14, you also do have a role modeling period programming where you can have programming that gets set. From 14 to 21 is your socialization period. Again, people you hung around, who you became. And then from 21 to 28 is your first job or your career or your mentor. That also sets up programming in your mind and can also be affecting you today. And then we have what's called SEEs. And this is what we call a significant emotional event, which is basically a trauma of some kind. It could be a big trauma or a little trauma. So we can have things like sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse. It could be things like a divorce or a death or a relocation or being bullied or a car accident. And that's also how we interpreted these events. But these set up the programming of the mind. They basically store in the memory like a little photocopier, and they just keep repeating. And this is why we feel like we can live Groundhog Day. So it's important that we do reprogram some of these unhealthy ones that aren't serving us today. Interesting. I know, a lot to take in. But let's move on to the next one. The next one is beliefs. So a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking. And there are possibility filters, all right? And so, like Einstein says, we're boxed in by the boundary conditions of our mind and our thinking. Well, that becomes like our possibility filters. So if you think about what were your belief systems around money growing up? What were the things that your parents said? How were they in relationship? What was it that you were role modeled around that? Or parenting. And then we get into relationships with each other and we wonder why we try and manage money and parent together and we're not on the same page because we have different belief systems and programs around it. They're also convictions that we hold to be true. So if you had someone who had a belief that they are shy, do you think that's going to affect the environments they put themselves in, how they behave in those environments, and their skills and their skill sets? And if you flipped it, do you think if they weren't shy and they were confident and a leader, are totally going to change the environments and behaviour and capabilities? So it can be stopping you from getting the things that you want because you have this belief. You know, you can be aware of that belief, but then what's the other stuff that's holding that in place as well? Now, beliefs become your experiences, and your experiences are a direct result of your belief system. So if there's something in life that you're not getting that you want, there'll be an unconscious set of belief systems keeping you stuck, keeping you right where you are. And we go back to those two types of people and those boundaries. Why it's hard to push past those boundaries is because that fight or flight response kicks in and says, I only care about longevity of life, not quality. I don't want to change. I don't know what's on the other side. I feel like I'm going to die. So it's, we need to be able to do it in a safe, healthy way. Interesting. Then we move through to your values. And again, think about how does this relate to you? How does this resonate with you? Because your values are your drivers. They determine where we spend our time and where we spend our money. So where is it that you spend your time? Because your time is your biggest asset. Once you've spent it, it's gone forever, okay? And where is it that you spend your money? So someone might say to me, Linda, I can't afford the coaching, but their TV breaks down tomorrow and they'll find the money from somewhere because they value their TV over investing in themselves. And one is not right or wrong. It's just that they're different. Or you could have a friend and you say, hey, would you like to do this with me? It'll cost this amount of money. And they go, oh, I can't afford it. Yet next minute they're telling you they're going on a holiday. And you go, hang on a minute, how can they afford the holiday and they can't do what they want to do with me? It's because they determine what's important to us and they value that over valuing what it is that you want to do with them. Okay, so again, they're not right or wrong, they're just different. Now, because as a human being, we are meaning-making machines, we can have different meanings around what something means to us and to somebody else. So it's like we're speaking a different language, for example. So I could have a boss come in and say, Linda, I'm paying all of my staff more money, but they're still not happy. And that's because money's not their driver. It's not the language that speaks to them. They might value a day off. They might value you telling them that they've done a good job, or they might value a gift voucher. So It's just that money doesn't speak to them. Or alternatively, I have an employee come in and they still say, Linda, you know, I'm just doing everything right and I'm still not earning the money. But I elicit their values and money may not even be on their list. That's one problem. Or money may be on their list, but they have conflicts in the value system. For example, their belief is that they've got to work hard to earn money. I'll go, really? Because Richard Branson earns a lot of money and he has a lot of fun and he does business in his board shorts. So is it possible, when we look at those possibility filters again, that you can earn money and have fun and you can work smarter, not harder? Yes, it is possible, but it's learning to change the programming in the brain. Then we can look at things like relationships I've got there. So in relationships, this is where we find a lot of conflict because interestingly enough, my husband and I, we both value quality time, but quality time to my husband means being together, just being together and not talking. But if you could see by now, I'm a bit of a talker and I connect through talking. So we would be doing each other's head in. Like, I want to know what's going on in his day. I want him to know about my day, but he would just like to chill out and just unwind. And he just loves being in your presence. So there's compromise. Together, he's really taught me how to chill more, which has been really wonderful. And I can be reading my book and writing in my journal while he's, you know, playing his iPad game. And then there's time where we're really engaging. He's asking me about my day and I'm asking him about his, and we're really connecting. So in relationships, we can be speaking French and Japanese and wonder why we're not on the same page. It's understanding what are the values, what is the meaning behind them, why are they important. There's a whole process that we go through, and also looking at where the differences are in the value system. So hopefully you are relating to some of this and you are finding it interesting. Last, well, not last but not least, but we'll go into the second last one, which is identity. So the identity are a core belief, okay? And it's a place that we operate most of our lives from. And it is also the place where we can self-sabotage. And I've got a diagram to explain this in a little bit more detail. So, but I just want to share with you the example around money. So when I mentioned the three main beliefs around money that I grew up with in my home was money's the root of all evil, money doesn't grow on trees, and money doesn't make you happy. And so when I wanted to increase the money and the wealth in my life, it was like I was doing everything right, but I was just butting up against self-sabotaging, and I just didn't understand why. So when I unpacked this with my coach, it meant that if I was successful and had more money, it meant my dad wouldn't love me. Now, of course, that's not true, but that was the programming in the brain. And also that I would be more evil and I wouldn't be happy. So it gets very distorted. It doesn't make logic sense, but when you unpack them, you see the irony in it. Once I was able to change that and reprogram that, well, then, you know, I could do whatever I want. It's not that you don't ever butt up against another boundary in relation to money or in relation to something else. You do, but you just be able to stretch outside that and look at the different layer of it as well. So let me explain the construct of an identity to you. So in the middle, it's like you have a core belief, right? There's this core belief, and you have all these other little bubbles, all these unconscious belief systems supporting that construct and keeping it in place. And as a coach, I go in and knock out some of these belief systems, and then your system goes into freak out. Why? Again, it only cares about longevity of life, not quality. The pattern that it's used to, it's survivable. It doesn't know what's on the other side. So what it will do is create some more beliefs to keep that construct in place, because it doesn't want to be exposed, right? Because I know this is what we do and I have the skill set to be able to do so, I pop enough of these bubbles and we have what's called a disassembly process. And there's a transition period between breaking this down and creating a new belief system. I've also got there in the bottom left-hand corner, the strongest force in the human personality is the desire to protect one sense of self, of identity, of who I am. It'll do anything to maintain rapport with itself. So if I had a belief that I was not good enough, or anybody did, I've got an example there. If it was an identity or showing out, this is your core belief, the other belief systems that would be supporting it would be showing up in the self or the identity like I don't know enough. It would be showing up in relationships as I don't matter. It could show up with money as I cannot earn enough. And it could show up in business as I don't know that. Not good enough. How could you ever know that? Or with health, it could be showing up as I can't lose weight. So they're all very negative. Glass half empty versus glass half full approach, okay? Then if we create the change and the change at the unconscious level, and we change that core belief to be a positive one, you can shift from I don't know enough in myself to I'm constantly growing and learning. In relationships, you could shift from I don't matter to I do matter. With money, I cannot earn enough to I can earn anything that I want. Or in business and career, I don't know that till I can't wait to find out. So you're more solution orientated. And I can't lose weight in health till I'm working towards my ideal weight. So I have a completely different belief system. The same as I gave the example earlier, I'm shy versus I'm not shy or I'm confident. So it's really interesting to see in how your system is designed to kind of stop this. And this is where sometimes people stop that 1 foot from gold, is getting the right help to do the reprogramming so that you can change it at this unconscious level, which is where you get that permanent change. So again, core beliefs, the place that we operate most of our lives from and where we can self-sabotage. And don't be kind to yourself, because you don't do this consciously, you do it all unconsciously. Last but not least is systemic. So systemic is genetic patterns. So we accept the fact that we have the same eye colour and hair colour. We can also have patterns that get passed down through the family system as well that we can also look at. And it's also the place where our sense of belonging comes from. And the number one human need is to belong so that we feel safe and we feel loved, okay? And we'll do anything to maintain rapport with that family system. So like I said before, when I wanted to earn more money, if I was to self-sabotage, I'd be out of rapport with my family system. I wouldn't do that. And that's why I was self-sabotaging myself and creating it, because I wouldn't be, you know, my dad wouldn't love me and I wouldn't be successful and all those things. It's just a whole range of beliefs that come about. It's a place that we drive our behaviours, certain behaviours and actions from. So I also want to give an example of being in rapport with a family system. Let's say you had a family who was obese, and one of the people, excuse me, that were obese stepped outside the family system and wanted to lose weight. Energetically, unconsciously, the family system feels a shift, and that family system turn on the person who's trying to lose weight, and they go, "What are you doing? Have another cupcake." So that person's got to work twice as hard at the expense of relationships with their family to lose that weight, or they just give up and just come back to the family and everybody's happy again. So that's an example, but it could happen with lots of different examples in a family system. Also, what shows up here can be peer group pressure. So this is where we can do things that we know that aren't healthy for us, like smoking. For example, let's say you've got a new job and everybody goes out for smoko, and you might be in your 40s or 50s, and all of a sudden you take up smoking because you want to belong, you want to be part of that group. And so you know it's not good for you, but you'll do it anyway. And that's because that number one human need kicks in. You feel safe, you feel loved, you feel like you belong. So if there's things that you're doing that don't really make logical sense to you, or that somebody else is doing, even if it's unhealthy for them, this may give you and shed some light as to why that they may do this. So when you change, your whole world changes around you. When you shift, everything else shifts around you. So I want you to realize that this is how you get to that change. So the Life Mastery Now Success Target, looking at those 5 key areas, how you can shift and change using the logical levels of change. Also teaching people how to master and manage their emotions so they can respond versus react, be in charge of life versus life being in charge of you, is life mastery. So knowing how to change the programming of your mind is both powerful and possible, and is the key to life mastery now. So we will hand over to Scotty, but I'd like to thank you for all being here today. And I'd like to also share with you that I offer a complimentary mastery discovery session that we can drill down on those 5 key areas, give you a little bit of a roadmap on, you know, where you are now, where it is that you want to be. So if you would like to take me up on that offer, I will send you all an email after this as well, but you're welcome to contact me on my mobile or an email, or you can send me an email through my website as well. So hopefully you found that interesting and fascinating, and I didn't blow your mind too much, but I do kind of want to do that a little bit on purpose to be able to expand your thinking. So I'll just stop screen sharing now and hand back over to Scotty as well.
That was excellent. The desire to protect, the way you worded that was unreal. So it's such a driver, isn't it? You know, protect us from embarrassment, or, you know, the fear of unknown, stay in our comfort zone. There's so many things there. There was the way you worded that was unreal. It's such a strong internal power, isn't it? So if you can flip that on its head and turn it into a desire to succeed or achieve, wow, what a difference, hey?
Absolutely.
We will open up for some questions, but that was excellent. So anyone that's got any questions, please raise your hand, and we'll get Linda to sort of follow up on that. But you can easily see the 24 years of experience there. Hey, Linda.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, you most wish to teach what you most need to learn. So I definitely started out with my own journey. And I guess I fell into being a coach because I guess I learnt, you know, through myself and my own journey, how we could change and how we could grow. And I just have such a passion for helping people. And it's just really updating that programming and knowing how to do that.
Yeah. And most people ask about adversity. Like, you can get all the success you like, but you get up on stage and talk and people want to know, well, how'd you overcome adversity? How'd you change things around? How'd you flip things on their head? Everyone wants to know about, you know, what's that trigger to overcoming adversity? And I guess you're a perfect example of what you did years ago to turn a negative into a positive. And that's really half the mindset, isn't it? Because every disadvantage has the seed of equal or greater advantage.
Absolutely.
But you have to have the mindset to find it too.
Yeah, and it's being able to put yourself in environments. Like, I see coaching as an investment in you. To me, it's not a cost, it's an investment. Like, when you put into you, it pays you back tenfold, and it gives you things that money can't buy. It gives you things like your confidence. It gives you good relationships with your family, your friends. Like, you can't put a price on that stuff, or your health. You know, it's priceless to me. So sure, it can give you things, tangible things, and create wealth and all of that kind of stuff. But importantly, getting to know yourself, love yourself. What does that look like? You know, I still have people in their 60s not even having that relationship with themselves. And the more you get to know yourself and you invest in yourself, the more that you're able to give back. And to me, that's what life's all about. How may I serve at the end of the day?
Yeah, well said. Any questions? Anyone want to jump in with their commentary?
Excellent, Rob.
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Rob.
Thank you for that. That was really good. So with the pyramid, the structure of your training that you do,
Yes.
Is it starting off at base level? Like, do you start off, is that the sequence, or is there, you know, like, is the working on the subconscious? I noted that was the top 4 levels. Is that, you know, you don't tackle that stuff until you've covered the first 4, or what's the process?
Not always. I mean, to be honest, when I'm working with people, I'm working on multiple levels at any one time. And that's just because of my skill set, I suppose. So for you yourself, it's looking at what are those areas that I can change, or you can't change what you don't acknowledge. So it's even starting to identify. But definitely environment plays a big key with where you are and who you surround yourself with. So like, if you wanted to say to a friend or family who aren't wealthy, I want to earn money, and they're trying to give you advice, but they haven't created wealth themselves. So you need to be reading books or putting yourself in environments and learning about that yourself as well. What comes into the unconscious patterning around things like that is where, I guess that's where I'm an expert in my field, and being able to identify, you know, where those triggers are for you. So you can look at, you don't have to go in the sequence, although if you're wanting to move through it that way, there's no right or wrong way. For me, I often try and, I'm always about how do I help someone work smarter, not harder, and fast track them. So of course I'm going to hit the core stuff, you know, as soon as I can. I do a bit of info gathering with people as well, because that lets me understand the red flags for you as well. So, but of course I'm going to go in at those levels. The hard part for you is you yourself to go to those levels is because we operate 95% from the unconscious mind. You're not going to see your own blind spots. And that's where a lot of your programming is set, which affects how you are operating today. And so if that's why, yes, you can do a lot of stuff on your own, but this is why you don't always get the permanent change. You can go to a seminar and feel really pumped up for a month, but then you're back into your old habits because the programming hasn't been updated. Hopefully that I answered your question there, Rob.
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong way.
Yep. That's great.
Linda?
Hi, Linda.
I don't have a question, but the reason why I don't have a question is because you portrayed everything just so clearly and described everything so well that I don't have questions. I wrote down some notes because
Excellent.
a lot of it really resonated with me, but I don't have questions because of the way you delivered it. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Linda. That's great feedback. Thanks very much. Excellent.
So in closing off, what's your final take home? What's your final tip for everyone as a close?
Knowledge is power. You can't unknow what you've just learned. So being able to understand that you can change, that you're never stuck, it's just getting the right help to be able to transition you through where you are now, through those boundary conditions, to be able to move through the other side, that it is possible. Anything is possible. I think I'm an ordinary person living an extraordinary life. There's no reason why you can't. It's just being able to know that you can update the program of the mind like you would an iPhone or an iPad. Please, I'll send you out an email, take me up on the complimentary discovery session so that you can learn a little bit more and drill a little bit deeper on your own self.
All right. Well, on that note, thanks everyone for coming. What a really good session. International Women's Day, March 8, coming up next week. We've got a whole heap of panelists on that one. Make sure you register for that. And also keep an eye on what else is live after that as well. So we've got a heap of really excellent workshops coming up that, we're all here to help you in one way or another. So thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you all on the next one.
Thanks everyone. Have a fantastic day. Bye
See
for
you all.
now.